Garrett Augustus Morgan. He was a very sort of famous black entrepreneur who lived at the early 1900s. He invented the traffic light, the three-signal traffic light.
The traffic light.
Yep. The one that everyone uses when they walk.
And why don't we know him?
Yes, great question. Why don't we know Garrett Morgan? What happened to this black American inventor?
He's underpublicized. So he, unfortunately, had to hire a series of white actors and white attorneys and patent lawyers to stand in for him in order to gain the credibility that he needed to have his inventions.
Garrett Morgan, a hard-working and diligent man, was nothing short of a genius in his time. There has never been a history more inspiring and motivating than that of Garrett Morgan's journey as a black man, born in an unfortunate cycle of unspeakable segregation, racial terrorism, and the cruelest forms of suffering and white oppression, struggling so hard to shine the light of his gifts. And he was trampled all the way, again and again and again, time after time. But guess what? Still he rose in the end, because the world could never do without the remarkable abilities of his genius. Before we continue with this touching and inspiring story of just another example of the black man's mind and power, don't forget to offer support by hitting the thumb up button below. Share with your friends and families to keep spreading our eye-opening black narrative, and subscribe to kindly stay tuned in to the channel for more awareness coming along. Now let us dive into this story. Born in an era of overwhelming racism and extreme white supremacy, Garrett Morgan is one great African-American inventor with insatiable curiosity and passion for innovation. In an attempt to build his dreams, he immersed himself in modern technology, meticulously studying its inner workings and exploring new ideas. But Morgan's black race heritage would go a long way in having a negative impact on his business dealings. As an adult, however, with unbridled enthusiasm for innovation and creativity, he would go on to spearhead transformative discoveries. In an effort to counteract the resistance to his products, Morgan had begun hiring white actors to pose as the inventor during the presentations of his breathing device, because truly, no one was going to believe such an excellent invention was from a black man, let alone buy it from him in a white man's world. Morgan then posed as the inventor's sidekick, disguised as a Native American man named Big Chief Mason. Wearing his hood, Morgan entered areas otherwise unsafe for breathing. The tactic was quite very successful, and sales of the device were quick to materialize, especially from firefighters and rescue workers in the inevitable day of reckoning. His ingenious inventions revolutionized lives with his groundbreaking safety hood, pioneering traffic signal, innovative hair care products, and clever improvements to sewing machines and belt fasteners. You just name it. Garrett Morgan was drawn literally to almost everywhere. There was a situation crying out loud for an urgent solution, and he always did answer these calls by inventing several solutions which have made human existence easier today. Being the seventh child out of 11 children of the freed slaves, Eliza, née Reed, Morgan and Sidney Morgan, he dropped out of school after the 6th grade, just like many African-American children growing up at the turn of the century, so he could work full-time. At age 14, he left his family's farm and moved to Cincinnati, Ohio. There he took a job as a handyman and hired a tutor to continue his education. In 1895, he moved to Cleveland, where he began repairing sewing machines. In 1907, Morgan opened his own sewing equipment and repair shop. The following year, he married Mary Hasek, a white woman from Bavaria. The Hasek family had immigrated to the United States from Bohemia, which is now modern-day Czech Republic, in 1893, becoming part of Cleveland's growing and thriving immigrant community. The 1900 census listed Mary as a sewer in a tailor shop, an occupation commonly held by immigrant women at the time. Their relationship, however, presented them with an immediate challenge, being that Garrett was black and Mary was white. As an interracial couple at that time, when segregation was becoming more common and white supremacist violence was on the rise, Garrett and Mary faced discrimination from their employers and even from family. According to their granddaughter, Sandra Morgan, Morgan's employer gave him an ultimatum, an end to his relationship with Mary, or he would be fired. He quit instead, and Mary soon followed suit. During the course of their marriage, Mary's father petitioned the Catholic bishop and had her excommunicated from the Catholic Church, and her siblings had to visit her in secret to maintain their relationship. In no time, the duo had 3 boys together: John, Garrett, and Cosmo. The Morgans valued family time and hosted dinner in their home in Cleveland every Sunday night, with attendance mandatory. Garrett Morgan also invested heavily in his son's education, offering them opportunities unavailable in his youth. In 1908, more conscious of his heritage, he helped start the Cleveland Association of Colored Men. Morgan and his wife persevered through the racial treatment they got from many and worked hand in hand with each other, that they soon became partners in business as well as life. Following their forced exits from their jobs, Garrett and Mary put their skills in the textile industry and entrepreneurial spirit to use and opened Morgan's cut-rate ladies' clothing store. The shop made coats, suits, dresses, and other clothing, and ultimately had 32 employees. Morgan's first notable invention addressed a common problem with sewing machines at the time. Then, the needles moved up and down so quickly that they often became hot and even scorched some fabrics. With hopes of alleviating the problem, Morgan experimented with a chemical solution in an effort to reduce friction created by the needle, and in no time, he successfully made a chemical solution to reduce the friction. At the same time, he discovered that the solution straightened the cloth fibers after he wiped the liquid on a piece of pony fur cloth, and it stood straight. He also observed that the liquid worked in straightening his neighbor's dog's fur and his own hair, hence it was safe to use for hair straightening. He further made the liquid into a refining cream and launched the G.A. Morgan Hair Refining Company, where he employed mostly white individuals to help market the product due to black discrimination and segregation at the time. Morgan received great success and added other products, including hair growing cream, black hair oil dye, and a curved tooth comb for hair straightening in 1910. In 1914, Morgan got a patent for a breathing device, also called smoke protector or safety hood. The device provided its wearers with a safer breathing experience in the presence of smoke, gases, and other pollutants. Morgan worked hard to market the device, especially to fire departments, often personally demonstrating its reliability in fires. There was some resistance to Morgan's devices among buyers, particularly in the South, where racial tension remained palpable despite advancements in civil rights for Black Americans. In an effort to counteract the resistance to his products, Morgan hired a white actor to pose as the Inventor during presentations of his breathing device. Morgan then posed as the Inventor's sidekick, disguised as a Native American man named Big Chief Mason. Wearing his hood, Morgan entered areas otherwise unsafe for breathing. The tactic was successful. Sales of the device were quick to materialize, especially from firefighters and rescue workers. A groundbreaking encounter that changed the course of Morgan's inventions was the early morning call he received on July 25, 1916. The Cleveland Police Department had reached out to Morgan for help after a disaster occurred at the West Side Waterworks tunnel beneath Lake Erie, where an explosion had trapped workers. Morgan's gas mask invention was put to the test as he courageously led a rescue effort, saving several lives and gaining national attention. The incident that led the Cleveland Police Department to call on Garrett Morgan that morning was the consequence of rapid population growth and a city struggling to keep up. In addition to its importance to transportation, Lake Erie had been the source of fresh water for Cleveland citizens since 1856. As the population expanded, so did pollution in the lake, and the city constructed its first waterworks tunnel in 1874. These tunnels were designed to extend from the shore to water intake cribs, sometimes miles out into the lake, where the water was untainted by pollution. A second tunnel, then a third, proved inadequate as Cleveland's population grew by hundreds of thousands every decade. With typhoid fever on the rise, a fourth tunnel was authorized in 1910, one that would eventually extend 4 miles out into the lake. Work began in 1914. This was quite difficult and dangerous for the laborers. 33 workers had died during the construction of the previous tunnel. At first, safety had seemingly improved on the new project, but that all changed on July the 25th, 1916, when natural gas vented up from the lake bed and somehow caught fire, trapping a work crew under hundreds of feet of detritus, miles from the shore. 2 previous rescue parties had succumbed to the dangerous natural gas filling the tunnel, but still they couldn't do anything, and time was quickly running out. Within an hour of receiving the call, Morgan and his brother Frank reached the entrance to the tunnel with around 20 of Morgan's patented safety hoods. Confident in his product and driven to save lives, Morgan donned the fabric smoke hood and led the 3rd rescue party down the tunnel. Thanks to his invention, Morgan and the other rescuers were able to find 8 survivors and recover 4 bodies in a disaster that took 20 lives. Although Garrett Morgan took care to conceal his identity from consumers nationally, Clevelanders had long known who was the true inventor of Morgan's national safety hood. His daring rescue would shed light on the racial hypocrisy of the times. Morgan was a hero, but the response to his daring rescue mission, both in town and across the country, was uneven. According to one article in the Monitor, an African-American-run newspaper, Cleveland Mayor Henry Davis was the last man to shake Morgan's hand before he went down, and the first man to congratulate him when he returned. The mayor was highly aware of Morgan's role in the rescue, yet his reluctance to publicly honor him led Morgan to write him a letter containing the forthright statement,
"I am not a well-educated man. However, I have a PhD from the School of Hard Knocks and Cruel Treatment."
Unlike the largest news organs of the time, Garrett Morgan's career was well documented in African-American-run newspapers across the country long before the tunnel disaster. The New York Age covered a 1915 meeting between Garrett Morgan and bankers from J.P. Morgan Company regarding a potential recommendation of the safety hood for use by the British Army already embroiled in the conflict of the First World War. In a glowing article entitled "A Man of Worth to the Race," the Kansas City Advocate commended Morgan's wonderful inventive brain together with remarkable business ability. The 1916 piece goes on to declare this:
"All the more credit is due to him when we consider the fact that he has accomplished so much without the learning of books, but with the teaching, as he has well chosen to put it himself, to the College of Hard Knocks."
The Monitor centered on Morgan in their reporting of the tunnel disaster, while many other newspapers hypocritically did not dare to mention him at all. Morgan's breathing device later became the prototype and precursor for the gas mask used during World War I, protecting soldiers from toxic gas used in warfare. But despite all of his heroic efforts, the publicity that Morgan garnered from the incident hurt his sales rate when the public became fully aware that Morgan was black, and many refused to purchase his products. Adding to the detriment, neither the inventor nor his brother were fully recognized for their heroic efforts at Lake Erie, obviously another effect of racial discrimination. Morgan was nominated for a Carnegie Medal for his efforts, but ultimately wasn't chosen to receive the award. In spite of this, the voracious inventor, Garrett Morgan, did not stop at just the invention of the gas mask. His penchant for fixing problems turned his attention to all kinds of things, from hats to belt fasteners to car parts. The first black man in Cleveland to own a car, Morgan worked on his mechanical skills and developed a friction drive clutch. Morgan had long been involved in organizing for the black community in Cleveland as a co-founder of the Cleveland Association of Colored Men nearly a decade before the tunnel disaster. But perhaps this dichotomy in press coverage spurred one of Morgan's next civic-minded projects. In 1920, he founded a weekly newspaper, the Cleveland Call. The unfair treatment following the tunnel disaster left bitterness, but Morgan continued his work. In 1918, with the United States entering the war in Europe, the Denver Star reported that Morgan received an order for safety hoods from the U.S. Navy. They were to be used to equip warships still under construction, and the newspaper declared it a racial success. While continuing to grow his existing businesses, Morgan soon turned his inventive mind to a different challenge: the public safety issues stemming from traffic. In 1923, he created a new kind of traffic signal, one with a warning light to alert drivers that they would need to stop, as it was quite common at the time for bicycles, animal-powered carts, and motor vehicles to share the same thoroughfares with pedestrians. Crashes frequently occurred between the vehicles, and after witnessing one such incident that involved a collision between an automobile and a horse-drawn carriage at a particularly problematic intersection in Cleveland, Morgan was convinced that something should be done to improve traffic safety. While other inventors are reported to have experimented with and even marketed their own three-position traffic signals, Garrett Augustus Morgan was the first to apply for and acquire a U.S. patent for such a device. The patent was granted on November 20th, 1923. Morgan later had the technology patented in Great Britain and Canada as well. Prior to Morgan's invention, most of the traffic signals in use featured only two positions, stop and go. Manually operated, these two-position traffic signals were an improvement over no signal at all, but because they allowed no interval between the stop and go commands, collisions at busy intersections were common during the transition from one street to the other. Another problem with the two-position traffic signals was the susceptibility to human error. Operator fatigue invariably resulted in erratic timing of the stop-and-go command changes, which confused both drivers and pedestrians. At night, when traffic officers were off duty, motorists frequently ignored the signals altogether. On the other hand, Morgan's traffic signal was a T-shaped pole unit that featured three positions: stop, go, and an all-directional stop position. The third position halted traffic in directions before it allowed travel to resume on either of the intersection's perpendicular roads. This feature not only made it safer for motorists to pass through intersections, but also allowed pedestrians to cross more safely. At night, or at other times when traffic was minimal, the Morgan signal could be positioned in a half-mast posture, alerting approaching motorists to proceed through the intersection with caution. The half-mast position had the same signaling effect as the flashing red and yellow lights of today's traffic signals. As word spread across North America and England about Morgan's life-saving inventions, such as the gas mask and the traffic signal, demand for these products grew far beyond his hometown. He was frequently invited to conventions and public exhibitions around the country to show how his inventions worked. Morgan's traffic management technology was used throughout North America until it was replaced by the red, yellow, and green light traffic signals currently used around the world. The inventor eventually sold the rights to his traffic signal to the General Electric Corporation for $40,000. The Federal Highway Administration honors Garrett Morgan's contributions to making the world a better place through programs like the Garrett A. Morgan Transportation Technology Education Program, which helps K-12 students in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to become tomorrow's transportation professionals. Outside of his inventing career, Morgan diligently supported the African American community throughout his lifetime. He was a member of the newly formed NAACP, was active in the Cleveland Association of Colored Men, donated to black colleges, and opened an all-black country club. Additionally, in 1920, he launched the Cleveland Call, an African American newspaper later named the Call and Post. Despite poor health in his later years, Morgan continued to work on inventions. His last was a self-extinguishing cigarette that had a water-filled plastic pellet placed just before the filter. Morgan began developing glaucoma in 1943 and lost most of his sight as a result. He suffered from other health problems, which he believed were attributed to toxins present at the Cleveland Tunnel disaster. Just before his death, Morgan was honored by the U.S. government for his traffic signal invention. The accomplished inventor died in Cleveland on July the 27th, the year 1963, after battling a lingering illness, according to his obituary in the Pittsburgh Courier. His death at the age of 86 came shortly before the celebration of the Emancipation Proclamation Centennial, an event he had been awaiting in Chicago. Today, Morgan's body lies at Cleveland's Lakeview Cemetery, which is also the final resting place of former President James Garfield, Prohibition enforcer Elliot Ness, and business titan John D. Rockefeller. Morgan's legacy has improved and saved countless lives worldwide, including those of firefighters, soldiers, and vehicle operators with his profound inventions. And he was eventually restored to his place in history as a hero of the Lake Erie rescue. His work provided the blueprint for many important advancements that came later and continues to inspire and serve as a basis for research conducted by modern-day inventors and engineers. In 2005, Morgan was inducted into the National Inventors Hall of Fame in Akron, Ohio. His prototype traffic signal is on display at the African American Museum in Cleveland, and the Garrett Morgan School of Engineering and Innovation in the city is named in his honor. And this brings us to the end of yet another eye-opening video. Thanks for staying with us till the very end. Don't forget to support our works by hitting the thumbs up button in front of you. Share with your friends and families to keep spreading our eye-opening Black narrative, and kindly subscribe to stay tuned in to the channel for more informative contents if you are yet to. It's always a delight to have you with us. Thank you for watching, and see you in our next video.